Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Skye Scott, and we're talking today about resilience, stress, and embodiment, and really the nuanced and beautiful connection that we have between the body and the mind. We're going to start in the way that I always start, which is to just check in with the body, which is so aligned to the topic we're speaking about today. So I'm going to invite you, wherever you are, to close all the other tabs on your laptop, stop multitasking, place both feet on the ground. Perhaps turn your palms up into a receiving position. Lengthen your spine. And just bring some awareness to your breath. The inhalation, the exhalation. Bring in some awareness to any other bodily functions that you might be aware of at this moment. Perhaps you can detect your heartbeat. Perhaps you can feel the temperature of the air on your skin. And perhaps you can check in with your body language right now. If somebody walked into the room and read your mood, what would they read? And as the thoughts arise in your busy mind, observe and let them pass. And just bring your focus and attention back to your breath. When you're ready, you can slowly join me back in the room. Open your eyes. Observe how that may have shifted, how you began this morning. And let's begin by reflecting on the number 6 hours and 58 minutes. That is the average amount of time that a working person spends in front of a screen these days. And then let's think about the amount of time that we spend on introspection. No, that's the wrong word. And then let's reflect on the amount of time that we spend checking in with our senses, checking in with how the body is, responding to the body's needs, sensing. And that's probably in total about 2 minutes throughout the entire day. We're living in a culture of cognification, this kind of neck up culture where we are all so solely invested in how fast we are thinking and how much we are advancing our intelligence and our cognition. And as a consequence of that, we often neglect the well-being of our bodies from the neck down. In 2014, a researcher called Timothy Wilson did a study where he invited a large cohort of people into a room and he offered them 2 options. The session was 15 minutes long. Option 1, you could self-administer a small electrical shock to your ankle for 15 minutes. And option 2, you could sit with your thoughts and do nothing. 67% of men chose the electric shock. 25% of women chose the electric shock. And I think that this is such a glorious reflection of how preoccupied we are with our minds and how challenged we are in modern day life by stillness. Western medicine has created a kind of divide between the body-mind connection. And most ancient wisdom and ancient medical wisdom and healing wisdom always saw the body and the mind as one holistic unit. A man called Damasio in the 20th century began to reintroduce this idea back into Western medicine. And he highlighted the somatic messaging that our bodies are giving us constantly in a way that, when perceived precisely and intuitively and respectfully, can enhance our resilience, our adaptation to stress, our sensitivity to the people around us, and enhance our ability to make quick, accurate decisions. When you are checking in with the body and reading the information that the body is constantly giving you, you become a superpower. Damasio said we are not thinking machines, we are feeling machines that think. And I think that this is something that we need to remind ourselves of in an age where we are so overstimulated and so preoccupied with our thinking brains. Not to mention the competitive pressure and the kind of soup of urgency that artificial intelligence has introduced to this landscape. urging us to be faster and more efficient and have all these extra tabs open all of the time. Let's check in with some of the senses that you might not be cognizant of. I'm going to again ask you to close your eyes. So close your eyes, and then I want you to lift your right arm and place your pointing finger of your right hand on your left knee. And then you can open your eyes again. How are you able to do that without seeing your body? This is called proprioception. And this is just another example of one of the things that we are always unconsciously sensing, the way that we perceive shapes in our hand. With our eyes closed, you can tell what you are holding. There are senses, I believe, that we are yet to really completely understand. And I thought I might introduce you to some really beautiful illustrations of this in the body. One of my favorite experiments was done with mothers and their twin infants. We know that skin-to-skin contact is so vital for a child to thrive, and equally so important for adults to thrive. When we hold ourselves tightly, when we apply deep pressure to the body or to the body of another, when we give a close hug or embrace, we invite intimacy, and there is a reciprocal slight surge in oxytocin in the brain that cultivates and stimulates this intimacy and connection that we are all striving for. So let me loop back to that experiment with the infants on their mother's body. They cooled the one infant down and they warmed the other infant up, and they put both infants breast to breast on their mother's body. And the mother's body intuitively heated up the cool infant and cooled down the warm infant. Another really articulate illustration of the intelligence of the body is the way that women begin to menstruate together when they cohabit or work very closely together. There are pheromonal signals that our bodies are reading all of the time. Another wonderful bonkers experiment took a cohort of young men and asked them to wear a clean, non-smelling white t-shirt for a few days. They weren't allowed to shower, they weren't allowed to use soap or anything very fragrant, and they weren't allowed to eat any strong foods during the days they were wearing the t-shirt. Then they took the t-shirts and they offered them to a cohort of young women. And they asked the young women to sniff the t-shirts and engage their olfactory sense and score the t-shirts on pleasantness of smell. And then they measured a gene complex in the men and the women called the major histocompatibility complex. And there was an incredibly strong evidence that the women were more drawn to the smells of men who were more genetically dissimilar to them. A certain way to propagate the species with less disease. And so these are just a couple of the examples that I think really illustrate so beautifully some of the magic of our body that we often take for granted and neglect. Perhaps we can pause for another little reflection. I'm going to ask you again to close your eyes and to bring to mind somebody that you have conflict with. Perhaps somebody who is a toxic leader or an ex, anybody in your life that was a charged relationship. And to just bring some awareness to how that sensation arises in your body. You might feel something in your gut. You might feel something in your skin. You might feel an uptick in your heart rate. And then move that person out of the screen of your mind and draw into your mind's eye your beloved, your dearest child, somebody that you love and adore. And feel how that senses in the body. Perhaps your heart rate slows or your breath deepens. The body has an intelligence that is often one step ahead of the mind. The gut is another wealth of neuronal activity. I actually like to think of the gut almost as an extension of the brain, because so often we'll have a sense in our gastrointestinal tract of something being right or something being wrong. And when we go back to that gut instinct after a lot of cognification in between, we always find that we were right the first time around. Let's talk a little bit about the nervous system. So your central nervous system has got an accelerator, that's your fight or flight response, and it's got a decelerator, that's your parasympathetic rest and digest. And all the time your body is negotiating this beautiful fine balance of homeostasis between these drives, the driver and the slower down. When we are existing in a soup of stress and we are churning out adrenaline and cortisol, and our fight-flight accelerator is overstimulated, we dysregulate the balance of these two systems. And there's a beautiful metric called your heart rate variability that we can actually measure with watches these days, and which you might want to check in with if this is a function that you are measuring already but not checking in with. So if somebody is rushing around in that soup of pressure and cortisol, you end up dysregulating that beautiful harmony between fight or flight being appropriate and rest and digest being appropriate. And this often manifests as burnout, exhaustion, sleeplessness, anxiety, conflict in relationships. And one of the consequences of a dysregulated nervous system is that the alarm bells go off for minor things. So instead of an appropriate response, there's a burglar at the window, fight or flight kicks in. Now, when the toast burns, or the bath is too hot, or somebody's 2 minutes late, the alarm goes off then. And it's this dysregulation, the soup of cortisol churning through your bloodstream, that impacts and seeps out into your work environment. So how does this impact the people around you? There is actually evidence now that you can detect cortisol levels in our sweat, and that you can pick up the contagion of stress when you are spending time with people who are surviving on cortisol soup. You've all had this experience of spending time with somebody who is in a mad frenzy, or spending time with somebody who is joyful, present, and calm. When we bring our bodies back into presence, using our senses can be a very powerful tool. One of the things that they teach you to do if you're having a panic attack is to just observe the things around you. Observe your bodily functions. Observe your heart rate. Just bring awareness into this present moment. How many of us can say that we are really present with the people in our lives today? We're constantly interrupted by vibrating watches and flashing screens. And these devices are designed in a way to hook your attention, to keep you completely enthralled and constantly turning over the phone or opening the tabs to check. This is so tricky and so difficult, and I don't want to villainize all of this technology because it's also magical and opens up so many doors. But if we bring present awareness to how we are engaging with these tools, and we take our power back so that we are not at the mercy of the tools, we can so much better navigate our stress response, the way that we can connect with the people around us, and the impact that we are having on our teams. Why does this matter? This matters because how you think governs how you experience your body, and how you sense your body governs how you empower and nurture and feed and strengthen your body. When I think of the body, it always calls to mind for me images from my anatomy textbooks of those really immaculate muscular figures with no body fat, or the chiseled Michelangelo's David. You've got more than 600 muscles in your body. And even just the position of your body in space communicates something to the people around you. Are you open to receiving? Are you closed and combative? Are you hunched over your laptop? Your head is about 10 times heavier at this angle compared to this angle. You can try it right now. Just lengthen your spine and put your crown on and feel the lightness of your skull on your neck compared to this. None of Rodin's statues were doing this. And so if you can bring some cognition and respect for the beautiful symbiotic conversation, the bidirectional axes between all of your organ systems, between your body and your environment, between how you think and how your body feels, between the body language that you receive and share with others. I promise you, you will feel more vital, you will be more precise, you will be more intuitive, and you will be more effective in everything that you do. Another wonderful experiment looked at the power of visualization. They had a couple of different groups, and one of the groups had to visualize strengthening a certain muscle group every day, and they compared the hypertrophy of that muscle group to the group that actually did the exercise every day. And this is not to tell you that you should not exercise, because I'm going to give you a whole lecture on that on another day. This is to remind you of the power of how you think, the power of how you perceive others, the power of priming your mind to recognize certain things. We've all had the experience of searching for a car, a desirable car. Perhaps you're looking at a certain brand. All of a sudden, wherever you go, there is that car staring at you. Prior to looking for the car, it was not on your radar. And so this kind of wah-wah idea of manifestation and drawing things towards you can really be explained from a neuroscientific point of view, because we can train our brains to see certain things, and we can untrain our brains equally to unsee certain things or to reframe certain things. And so that visualization group, whilst they didn't have as much muscle hypertrophy as the people who were actually doing the exercise, they did have quite a significant amount. And so even just visualizing yourself doing whatever it is you aspire to do is a powerful way of cultivating ease towards that action. Mary Oliver said that attention is the beginning of devotion. And what you pay attention to is so powerful and has such a meaningful and impactful presence on how you experience the world and how you experience your body and how you experience the people around you. So I'm going to leave you with the reflection, what am I paying attention to? And what would I like to be paying attention to? And how can I redesign the way that I am engaging with my body, the way that my body is engaging with the people around me, and the way that I think about my body? We now know that depression is a risk factor for cancer. Depression is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Your mind is so powerful, and your body equally so. And so when we begin to think in systems around interconnection, around community, we know intuitively that we are all greater when we connect collectively and when we draw on the strengths of the entire body system and the entire community.